Ever play Counter-Strike? Did you die? Yeah, of course you did. When did you start player? Source? Go? Have you ever taken a break from the fighting and the grind and flown outwards? When I was a kid playing Source games like Garry's Mod TTT or CSS, these moments spent exploring after death were just as fun as the matches. You'd be surprised what you can find out there. A unique quirk of the Source engine is that all assets used for the 3D skybox exist within the levels themselves. These miniatures are projected onto the sky, like a special effects department for CGI, all of which can normally be explored just outside the map. Other than the Easter eggs and assets never meant to be seen up close, can we find anything else? Try flying into the walls and observing the geometry. Oftentimes you are met with an abstraction of the game world, meeting with the void of the Source engine. These landscapes we can see only after death offer a modern interpretation of the spirit world, a transient view only seen by wandering souls. If video games are a form of escapism, is this not the ultimate expression of that? It is with their abstracted realities that Swedish painter Kristoffer Zetterstrand was most interested in. As a fellow gamer, I can immediately discern Zetterstrand as a high-class individual. Being a PC gamer in the 90s and early 2000s, he of course picked up Counter-Strike, and notably thought the transient atmosphere had artistic potential. He went on to create several paintings based on landscapes from these views in Counter-Strike. As I talk, I will display some paintings from this catalog, and after a delay, the most recent adaptation of the map it is based on. If you can't guess them, leave a like. If you can, go ahead and leave a dislike paired with a hateful comment about what you did to my mother last night. These paintings were displayed in an exhibition called Free Look Mode. The process is about what you might expect. Zetter Strand would join a CS server and try to die as quickly as possible, to allow him to scout for interesting locations. Once he found a worthwhile landscape, he would screenshot it and try to capture it in his work. Many mistakenly believe Zetter Strand's works are digital. This is an easier mistake to make in his later work, which we'll get to eventually. However, every piece I will display today was made with oil paints. This exhibit is important to me because to my knowledge it marks the first instance of digital media meaningfully merging with traditional arts. The medium is completely traditional, but it couldn't exist without computer innovations. I think the outlier is my favorite in the exhibition. This piece depicts the moment of death. The first-person perspective allows for an uncommon angle of the scenery, framed by the eye-catching pixelated blood. While it's not like the rest of the collection, I think it holds a very meaningful place. Zetterstrand meant to capture the abstract concept of the spirit world, weighing in between life and death. This piece acts as almost a gateway to this world. His appreciation for pixels didn't start with Counter-Strike. In 2012, he spoke at the Smithsonian American Art Museum, where he expressed his appreciation of simplistic pixel art. He made specific reference to the King's Quest games, the text-based classics, a stylistic influence you can see in his later work. The main protagonist, Graham, in the series is used quite frequently in his works. In earlier paintings, you can see him using Graham to explore directly merging digital with physical media, something he would become quite famous for.
I really got the feeling that anything is possible, and I saw this Spanish still life painter who wasn't content with just placing the objects in the window. He hung them up in strings as well, just because he could, and just to make an interesting image, and I was really inspired by that, so I thought, I can do anything.
Zetterstrand would go on to make this. Exploring the same concept, he made this later that year. You may recognize this one. No, not as Donkey Kong. That's right, this is the Minecraft painting. In fact, the majority of the paintings in Minecraft were contributed by Zetterstrand. While certainly a very important part of his career, this will be the last time the association will be mentioned. I am far more interested in the methods and meaning of the art as opposed to its commercial and relevance to internet culture. If you want to learn more about that aspect, there are several articles I found about just that. Graham was a favorite subject. While honing his early methods, Zetterstrand made a series of paintings called Levels, depicting King Graham from King's Quest in several imaginary worlds, with these two being particular standouts in the series. It is at this point I feel the need to reiterate that all of these works are entirely traditionally painted with oil paints. Each perceived pixel is handmade. The Golden Apple is perhaps one of my favorite Zetterstrands. It combines a lot of what distinguished him as an artist up to this point, imposing graphics from video games onto a piece of fine art. At this point, he has built up the confidence to impose it onto a Source engine-inspired scene directly. In this piece, you can also begin to see the elements of his later works, which have a diorama-like design to them. On top of that, the composition is just very pleasant to look at. Since I am interested in how human imagination creates worlds, I guess this is part of the answer. However, I never decided that the issue of perspective would form part of my work, but since it has always intrigued me, I keep coming back to it. It's the same with the Pythagorean ideas of mathematics. The harmony of numbers in the Fibonacci series, I have to test it out. For example, the painting series called Levels, which depicts Graham from King's Quest walking through different scenarios, each canvas being a level in his adventure, were all composed extremely methodically upon the golden ratio. When experimenting with virtual spaces, Zetter Strand was restricted by more or less what already existed. To further the art, the method must be enhanced. The logical next step would be to sculpt his own environments. In a sense, he had tried his hand at this already, in his CS days, making his own map, a DE Priory, which, speaking as someone with mapping experience, not easy to do on a whim. Apparently it still sees play in China. I don't know about that though, I'm not researching that claim. This gave him some basic experience with 3D software, modeling and detailing his own environments. Later he would upgrade to software like Maya, creating landscapes and complex dioramas, then painting them, created very interesting pieces. In my opinion, this style peaked in his 2009 collection. While quite visually noisy, I think the novelty of a landscape, which normally could only be seen in a digital space, in the physical world is more than enough to justify the piece. Maybe the most interesting component of this collection, and many future works, is the implicit connection of creator and creation present in the work. The contrast in the highly different layers of realism invokes a feeling not entirely dissimilar to the Uncanny Valley, but somehow this is being done in a positive way. The layers being the digitally inspired diorama assets, sometimes the backgrounds, but normally you see these pixel art elements in the foreground as individual actors. The traditional painting elements, mostly but not always inspired by historically significant artworks, and the creator himself, adjusting and observing his work. Zetter Strand is fascinated by the ability of humans to imagine worlds. Works like his Artist and Still Life represents the artist physically playing with the world that is entirely imagined within the mind's eye. There seems to be a fantasy to physically touch these virtual worlds. In a sense, these works are a form of wish fulfillment. Something I find interesting is the artist is never depicted with a paintbrush. If he's doing more than simply existing and interacting in the world, and actually crafting, his process looks closer to sculpting, physically adjusting elements with his hands. When you watch his process, this makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure if Zetter Strand would call himself entirely a painter. Despite most of his completed works being entirely done in oils, a large part of his process is still sculpting his environments. In fact, if you watch his process videos, all that is shown is the digital aspect. This is not to disparage Zetter Strand's skill with the brush at all. Recently, he has a lot more conventional works, self-portraits, detailed landscapes with a more realistic edge to them. And the detail on them is simply incredible. They are fantastic pieces of art as well. This is all to say, his artistic skill isn't entirely a gimmick. He has a lot of real chops behind him that anyone can see plainly. I find Zetter Strand to be a remarkable artist. His methods are innovative. The ability to find beauty and artistry in what many might write off as a pastime is inspirational. The compositions, despite often being collages, feel entirely unique. While the intricate details in his later works are fascinating to look at, I can't help but appreciate the imaginative landscapes from his Counter-Strike based work. It's a melding of new media and art in such a simple but elegant way. Right now, Zetter Strand is mainly known as the Minecraft guy, but with his innovative methods, which allow him to paint landscapes like no one else before him, I legitimately believe he has the potential to be remembered as one of the great artists of our time. This video was made using information from his website and his talk from the Smithsonian I mentioned earlier. If his work has captured you as it has done to me, I urge you to read his articles and admire his work on your own. Links to all resources in the description. Have a good day!